I switched gears a little bit in my last position in radiation therapy was in brachytherapy. And when I graduated, I was a therapist one, and again, because of my interest, I wanted to try other avenues. So in radiation therapy, you can work in the mold room, in our simulator, in our dosimetry area, on the treatment floor, or in brachytherapy. So brachytherapy is a branch of radiation therapy where we get to spend time in the operating room. It's more of the internal radiation therapy. We're putting radioactive isotopes in the body cavity, as opposed to the external radiation therapy that is on our treatment floor. So some therapists prefer to do the external therapy, some prefer to do the internal therapy, and that's where, again, my passion went. I liked being a part of that operating room team, working with the nurses, working with the doctors, anesthesia, but it's not for everybody. You have to like that operating room setting and all that that entails. Working in brachytherapy was also a more senior position. I got a chance to do some teaching, mentoring students, liaising with other departments, liaising with the doctors, and I found that to be a more well-rounded day for me. There was so much variety. Every day was different, and I got to use my expertise in many different areas. So for me, that was a great way to cap off my career, working in more of a specialized area and working in a concentrated, dedicated team, focusing on one area. But it's internal radiation therapy. Highly recommended if you like the operating room. Brachytherapy was my favorite, and it is where I spent my last decade or more, but it was definitely my favorite. And I think it was because perhaps I paid my dues. I felt that there was a good rapport with the doctors. There was always, my opinion was valued, and we would discuss ideas and problem solve together. It wasn't that hierarchical doctor and therapist. It was, we were truly on an even plane, and we were able to problem solve and come up with decisions together. And I got a lot of job satisfaction out of that. So there are lots of new trends bubbling up within our careers. I'm going to go back a little bit and say, when I was a radiation therapist, you did radiation therapy. If you were a respiratory therapist, you did respiratory therapy. If you were an X-ray tech, you did your X-rays and your imaging, as a simple example. That's not the case anymore. There's so much crossover. In our profession, we have what's called a CT simulator. So when we plan treatment, we have to also understand the basis of CT. We have an MR LINAC that is being developed. So we have to have a basis of MR with the ability to treat patients with a linear accelerator. So there's a lot of crossover that's now happening. There's teething pains with that, for sure, but there's also growth. And truly appreciating and understanding what the other professions are doing. If I'm going to work on an MR LINAC, then I can take my own radiation therapy, but I better have an understanding of MR. So let's talk to the MR world and understand. And so let's all come together, because I think the knowledge is being shared. So there's crossover, and that's because technologies are evolving so much. It's no longer just an anterior view for an image. You know, you might have multiple views, and I'm sorry, I'm speaking of CT and other areas that are not my area of expertise, but even in radiation therapy, we would treat from an anterior field, and now we do multiple fields, and so things have just evolved, but for better imaging, for better treatment, and ultimately what's better for the patient. So aside from the technological changes in our field, what else did I see? For me, the big word is research. When I was a new graduate, it was the technology. There was no research training in my schooling. Fast forward to now 2019, the radiation therapy students have research in their training. And I realized that there was a gap between my years of expertise and what the new graduates were coming out with. They had the ability to do research projects that I didn't have. And so that I see as a huge shift, is that the research component of our profession. My proudest moment in my career was getting my fellowship. So I have the designation at FCAMRT. I can't use it anymore now that I'm retired, but I'll use it for this moment. So a little history about the fellowship program through our national body. It was an opportunity to take that continuing education and take it one step further. And I saw it as a good fit because I was a technologist trained, so I don't have a university degree. So I couldn't work on a master's in the university stream. But I could work on this, which I think was a better fit. Well, it was a better fit for me. I think it's a better fit, and the national body is going to continue on with this. There were 3 sections. I had to have my advanced certification in radiation therapy. Then I had to do so many credits in volunteering. It gets back to that volunteering piece, helping, whether it be being a speaker at a conference, whether it was helping a national committee, helping a provincial committee. I got credits for helping within our profession. So I was not only helping the professions, but I was helping me as well. Good fit. I got my credits for that. The 3rd section of it was doing a research project, which gets back to that research component with my students. I didn't have that training. So then I took a research course and I sat in with the students on their research classes, and then I had to do a research project, which meant I had to do a literature search, I had to have a project in mind, I had to get a mentor, I had to publish. So for me, it took several years to complete, but that was the highlight of my career because I learned so much by doing it and gave back to the profession in the same way. So that was my highlight. Get up in the morning and look forward to your day. And if you can't do that, switch gears, make a change. If you get to work, be contagious. Put a smile on your face. Walk proud, walk with purpose, smile. It takes less muscles to smile than to frown. And just give it your best. But the only way you can give it your best is have a positive attitude in life, right? So be contagious with positive energy. That's what I would say. Yeah, and your patients will remember you for that more so than the technical side of a treatment plan or an X-ray or whatever field of view you're doing. Patients will remember you more for the smile on your face and that empathy that you give. I love to volunteer, and maybe I can divide it into 2 areas. Volunteering with our profession. So aside from the job that I had, volunteering with this college, volunteering at the national level, volunteering to help at a conference, loved all of that, to see the bigger picture of our profession. I guess the one personal volunteering that I love, I'm involved with an organization called CAMTA, C-A-M-T-A, the Canadian Association of Medical Teams Abroad. And I have had the privilege to go to Ecuador to help with orthopedic services to the underprivileged. Huge. I was humbled. When we think of what we have here with our MRIs and our CTs and everything for orthopedic services and what they don't have in Ecuador, there is a huge epidemic of hip dysplasia in that country. A lot of it is genetic, some of it is the way they swaddle their babies, some of it is they just haven't been able to have medical care at a young age to rectify these things in infancy. So there is a team, a Canadian team, that goes down there every February, March and provides these orthopedic services. So I've had a chance to go there 3 times. I've applied to go again next year for their mission. It'll be the 20th anniversary of the organization. And boy, do you work hard. But I got to tell you, when you meet applause and the Canadian flag and hugs and smiles, it is so worth it to see people that we can correct their ability to walk again. So I chose to join the ACMDT on word of mouth, actually. So the same as my volunteering, and a lot of the things that I do in my life are through word of mouth. You get to build relationships. The world is about building relationships. So another therapist that I worked with was on council at the time and said, they're looking for a radiation therapist, why don't you maybe put your name forward? And the rest is history, because I did put my name forward. So I was a council member and groomed myself had so much learning to do around the college table. But gradually, then I was asked if I would consider being a president. Being the person that I am, why don't you just jump in and give it the old college try? And I did, and learned as I went. And if you don't know, ask. And that's been my motto. If you don't know, ask and figure it out. And whenever you're working in a team, it's not one person making decisions. So you have a table of people, why not, work with their expertise too? And I was a better president for the people that I worked with. The ACMDT is a mechanism for spreading that professionalism that I talked about earlier within the province through a one-on-one phone call if you have a question, and I highly recommend, if you're not sure, just pick up the phone. They're very good to explain. All the conferences that we have, it's a forum to ask questions, find out where your dues are going. I didn't know where my money was going December 1st of every year. Get involved and you will soon find out. The legal side of our profession and knowing what happens when things go wrong, and sometimes we have complaints, and unfortunately that's the reality of healthcare, and the way they deal with those complaints and resolve them. And overall, the ACMDT is there to help us. They're not our enemy. They are there to help us and be the best professions that we can be. And if you can get involved, you've got opportunities for learning along the way.